Yes. Who thinks New York City is ready for esports by a show of hands? Okay. Who thinks it's not ready? He's the only guy? Really? Okay. All right.
Honest.
I'll help you out.
Oh, there we go. I got two. All right.
Don't leave me out.
So we're going to go into detail a little bit more about that question. And first, we're going to start off with Triforce Johnson of Empire Arcadia. I really wanted to have the Darth Vader music out, but we couldn't prepare it, so. How you been? How was the trip over?
It was a rough trip last night. Had to get over here. But LeBron James won last night, so I'm happy.
Okay, all right. Yeah. I'm a Curry fan, so I'm not feeling it. But so tell us. I guess I would like to start off with who you are. Some people might not know you. What's your organization? What games you host? And do you believe New York City is ready for esports?
Okay, my name is Isaiah Triforce Johnson. That's my legal name. I apologize for the power glove. The actual thing snaps, so I can't really work. I usually represent it. I'm the CEO and founder of Empire Arcadia. It's a long-time standing esports organization, especially for New York City. That's where we started our organization, and I think New York is late on esports. So yeah.
Okay. So when do you think esports started first in New York City? What was the first organization or?
Well, it depends on how the esports has many different ways to look at esports. A lot of people believe esports is something that is how competitive gaming is done today. So there's different variations for it. Esports has been around New York City for almost 2 decades, 2.5, going on 3. If you want to look at what esports actually is, it is competitive gaming that's organized. That's pretty much what esports is. So if you can create an infrastructure that organizes competitive gaming, that's what turns competitive gaming into an actual sport. So we're going back to 1981. That's when esports pretty much started. For New York, you can go back as far as to, when they had the qualifiers for the Nintendo World Championships. But if you look at something relevant to, let's say, the fighting game community, some of the people that you have here for your panel, then we're looking like the early turn of the century, 2002, 2003. And the competitive gaming aspect of fighting games, especially for the Northeast New York City, comes out of Chinatown. So there's a lot of guys involved in that. You have Henry Sen, you have Eddie Lee or Taro. Those guys were like the forefathers when it comes to those as competitors. From the organizing standpoint, I would have to point that to Jet Feed from East Coast Championships and Henry Sen from Chinatown Fair. And then you have a bunch of supporting casts, Desmond Pitney, who's also known as Executioner, Chris Matrix, which is Christian Elias. Those guys founded the hardcore underground scene for those competitions, which then developed over time. And fighting games has gotten its term for esports in New York due to MLG. A lot of people forget about MLG. And there's been so many different people, Eight at the Break, Chris Cotty, the rest of those guys. These guys really founded that competitive scene. And so when you're talking about esports, that's really what it is. It's just organized competitive game. However, when we look at it now, 2016, let's look at the relevance of esports now. There's been an industrial revolution that's going on in esports, where it's taking the platform of esports and it's industrializing it to meet today's standards for esports. So when you say, is New York ready for it, then how I take the question is New York ready for the standards of esports that's being hosted by organizations like ESL and the LCS from Riot and stuff like that? And if we phrase the question in that, then like I said, New York is still overdue.
Okay, all right. So my follow-up question is, would New York City benefit from a council or organization that would help esports? Would it benefit from that?
Well, for how esports is set. Today, when you look at the way, where is it going in terms of like all these different companies coming in and setting up, it definitely will benefit from an association. There's a lot of issues to help take gaming, competitive gaming, aka esports, to the next level. And as esports continues to evolve, there will be another age where esports will evolve from this. It's going to get to the next level and the next level until it gets to where it literally mirrors tit-for-tat sports. And an association is needed. Player unions are needed. That's like way overdue. Organizations, they need their representation so they can create these rules and regulations, policies to help strengthen esports as it moves forward into the future. A lot of people are scared for governance, but if you don't govern it, we'll stay in the wild, wild west forever, and then anyone can come, anyone can do anything they want. People can rewrite the histories however they see fit. So I believe esports definitely needs an organization.
Okay. What are some companies that helped expand esports here in New York City? I know you said a few, but I guess do you have any others that you might have missed or any that you?
Well, that needs it right now.
No. That help expand the sport, the esports.
Esports. I mentioned all the turn of the century organizations, but to push it to the next level, for instance, there's an event happening this year called ESL One. ESL is a huge help for New York, so they recently just came to North America and they're setting up, and they're going to be a huge help for New York expanding in esports. So that's one big organization that's going to be a help, and I don't want to kind of look, turn a blind eye to the other organizations like MLG and World Cyber Games, who have been in New York for over a decade helping the scene, but they really helped usher in the evolution for esports. And what they're doing now, World Cyber Games is not here, they just, I guess it's like a hard reset, they just came back. MLG is now with Blizzard Activision, and they're doing their thing, but ESL has a focus for New York. So that organization will definitely help the New York scene, and not just for fighting games, for all different platforms for esports. Any other organization I can think of, it's kind of hard. It depends on like what you're looking at. Are you talking about esports organizations, or are you talking about like esports teams, players, managers? Then New York definitely needs a WESA. It definitely needs WESA. The World Esports Council is out there. They've started their organization in 2015, and they're looking to, they have a bunch of initiatives and projects on the ground. They're in talks with different organizations like WESA, like ESL, and all those guys are working together to kind of make sense of this all, put the rules and the regulations in place so that esports can move forward.
Okay. Any final thoughts before Q&A?
Well, to give, I wanted to make a very interesting point. So, for our guests here, everyone, a lot of different people are here. Everybody has as I mentioned earlier, a different take on esports. What is esports? And it's kind of hard to talk about esports if you don't understand what it is or where it even came from. And one of the things I definitely wanted to do is kind of, inform the audience and those who will be watching this as well, what esports really is. And esports, as I said earlier, is organized competitive gaming. It has its roots. We have a stone age, for a silver age, a golden age, and each of those ages have players that contribute to the times as it's evolved. And as I stated before, we are in an age of an industrial revolution. Some people will ask, well, what is that? Yes. The industrial esports revolution is when companies both in and outside of the esports industry, some of them are gaming organizations, some of them are not. I'll give you an example, like American Express, Coke, and Pepsi. There's been all these different companies that have nothing to do with gaming. And these guys are coming in and they're sponsoring and they're putting in a lot of money, millions of dollars, to help the infrastructure for esports to grow. These industries are helping to revolutionize esports. and bring it to a commercial standard that can be compared to actual sports. And that is where we are right now, because I don't want today's gamers who, most of them are guys from PlayStation era, Xbox. And when I mean PlayStation, I mean like 3 and 4. I'm not even talking about PS1. But the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 era guys, the Xbox 360, they don't understand that there's a huge, rich, in-depth history of competitive gaming that goes way back, where if you've had like esports stars of today, 35 years ago, that's been on television, network television, produced on TV. They've been in Life magazine. These guys they've competed, they've had their own network which have gamers compete all around the world. So what we're seeing today in esports has actually already happened 35 years ago. The only difference is that today has a better infrastructure because of the technology, because of YouTube, because of Twitch, because of the internet. These technologies help esports to get to a level that back then, when one of the forefathers that I consider Walter Day created the infrastructure, he did not have. He had a telephone line and a couple of connections that he could make through the yellow pages, but he made it work. And it's important for us to not forget what those guys did, because they laid the bricks. And now these organizations are coming in now. Some of those people grew up on those guys' bricks to create the organizations that they had to now help revolutionize what they started. And definitely want to give a hand to those guys then and to the people now who are helping to push esports.
All right. So now we're going to open it up for questions. Anyone have any questions? We didn't plan this very well. Gabe, can you grab a mic and give it to... Actually, the other Gabe got it.
Hi. Wow, this is loud. So, I'm gonna move around the crowd here. Here. There you go.
Is that good? Awesome. My name is Nick, by the way. Thank you for coming out. How would you describe your standard esports fan versus your standard sports fan? And are they becoming more similar over time, or are they still very distinct today?
Well, when comparing a sports fan to an esports fan, it's the same people. These are people who love competitive gaming, whether it's athletic or electronic. The same people who would watch esports are probably the same people, actually not even probably, because I don't speak for myself. I like World Series of Poker. I just watched the Cavs beat his team. And human beings have a competitive nature. So we like to watch things competitive. It doesn't matter what it is. So the fan base and the demographic is actually the same. It's all about finding a way to market the similarities, and you'll start to notice that soccer moms, sports fans, hardcore sports fans, guys who are like whatever they do, I don't know, surgeons. Yeah, actually surgeons. That's a good one. Shout out to Hans Chen. But everybody likes video games. Everybody likes things competitive, whatever it is. So they're the same. They're very same. They're actually the same.
Hey,
Hi, you got it?
There you go.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Charlie. Thank you very much for coming tonight. My question was, if New York is related to the game, where in America would you say things are looking a bit better? And if not really in America, where in the world would be the place you take, example from, where the sport really developed and where should we look up for inspiration?
So we just so I can get the question right, are you asking where should New York get its inspiration to help develop esports?
Yeah, or where everything looking better, like in the esports scene, in North America first, where is it looking better than New York?
Definitely LA. That's hands down. Because New York is a place where you do business. That's what New York's about. But LA and certain regions of the United States they've done exceedingly better in terms of like hosting video game competitions and esports production purposes. That doesn't mean that New York couldn't do it, because New York has. I don't know if anybody remembers MLG. Meadowlands. This was like in 2006. Yeah, they were here, and it was huge. MTV's also been involved in esports. ESL, well, not ESL, but what's the other, CPL. There's so many different organizations that's hosted esports events here. World Cyber Games, they're at the Samsung building by Columbus Circle, Square. They had all those type of competitions here. So New York doesn't need to draw any inspiration. New York has its own history, and if New York would simply just, look at its history, look at the people that's here. Some of the old school guys, even the new school guys, like some of my colleagues who will be here later on, there are a lot of people that they can work with in the scene that can help push esports. It's just that there's a disconnect between the community who set up esports and the industry that set up esports. The industry is looking to find out where is the community or the demographic that would want to get involved in this, and because they can produce a scene or a platform professionally, so it can look like what we see in Korea, or for the LCS and Riot and ESL, what they do out in Europe and so forth. And then the community now, they don't know how to connect to that company. So when you have an organization like ESL, which is in New York now, those guys are trying to connect with the community so they can find a way to, what's that middle ground, to then give New York its own push for this day and age. Because New York's already had that push, but we need something that's going to take it to the next level, as I mentioned earlier in the conversation, to get it standardized.
Check. Yeah. So I liked how earlier you kind of made a distinction that I usually make pretty often. I really think that there's a huge similarity between video game culture and music culture. When you were talking about the older people that actually set the foundation for where esports is now, like where Mike and Sundance came from, I actually attended and won second place in the first MLG Halo CE competition at Gamechat Nation. So I'm one of the old heads. So going with that frame of mind, do you think that there's a similarity in terms of the older people who understand where things came from and the disconnect between the newer people now that you were talking about, the PS3 and the PS4 guys? Do you think they look at the growth and evolution of esports differently than, let's say, you or I would? Because I know I run into a lot of people who just think competitive gaming is the ability that I may have to make money off of doing this. And that's where I also see a dividing line between how the masses look at esports and how the people who have been contributing look at it.
Okay, there's two parts to your question, and I'll address both of them. One of the biggest disconnects is information. The audience, the broad audience, the general audience, old school, new school, whatever it is, people who like competitive gaming, they come from different ages. There hasn't been a platform that educates people on competitive gaming as a whole. A lot of the people are getting into it now. It's like getting a new basketball fan that's just getting into basketball. The last thing they're going to remember, if anything, is Kobe Bryant. They're not necessarily going to know about Michael Jordan. They won't know about Larry Bird. They won't know about Magic Johnson or Will Chamberlain or any of those old guys. They only know Kobe, Jordan, LeBron, whatever the case may be. The NBA has a setup where you can learn about its history. Esports doesn't have that yet. So what's happening right now is that you have a lot of these bigger organizations coming in and they're setting up what we're looking at now. So a guy like you and I who were raised in the old age, well, we know what happened then and we see what's happening now. But someone who's 15 who heard about, what's this guy named, Walshy, or what, the guy from Call of Duty that he's doing, they don't know anything behind those guys. So all they know is what they see right now. What they see is glamour, lights, the crowd there, millions of dollars, the Dota Invitational or International, and so forth. So they don't know anything about the old guys, and they never will unless something like this is brought up where they can be educated. So as long as that's there, no one's going to really know. It's going to really just stay as it is. And that's pretty much going to be a hard gap to cover because it's been a good, 5 or 6 years now since esports has really changed into this revolution that we're going through. So I don't know how we're going to be able to bridge that. I can only expect that slowly but surely people will get involved in it. Like guys like Fatality, I hope he gets an opportunity to do something like this where he is, because he has a bigger voice than I do. I'm really can only speak for New York, but if we can get those old guys in situations like this, they can embellish more on the history in their genre, and that'll help educate the masses. So hopefully, in closing on that question, hopefully the current organizations right now that are pushing the modern esports can give those guys a platform so that they can, preach the gospel to the new guys, and then they can do the study on it.
Hello? Okay. So what do you think, thank you for coming. What do you think about modern, quote unquote, modern game design, like free to play? Like what do you think free to play is done for esports? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? How do you think about it?
Free to play is great for esports. I support free to play for esports as long as it's free to play is meant for esports. Free to play has its place. Everything has a place. It all depends on how you set it up. If you look at Riot's setup, they pretty much have a well-rounded business model for their game and how they do competitive gaming. And you have a lot of these people who are now following suit for their games. Capcom has their fighting game version of that, however that works. So I don't think free to play is a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. It brings a lot more people in. Casual gamers is where the market is. Don't let anyone fool you. I'm a hardcore gamer. We do not count. Trust me, because we do not want to spend money. The casual gamers are the ones who want to spend money. The hardcore gamers, their jobs are like the superstars. Their job is to influence and gather the masses so that the big esports organizations can create an infrastructure to market to and set up and perpetuate this further and further as like any sport or competition would be.
Hello. Hey guys, my name is Saad. Currently working for ESL, so I was really interested in coming here. So a couple of questions I had. I've been involved in esports for a while, from MLG way back in the day to working with teams and to currently with ESL. And I think you bring up an important point with the history of the history of esports. There are some who know it, hardcore esports fans like me, but a lot of young people who are getting into it, even though our audience isn't skewed that young, but a lot of people getting into it don't really know the history. And it's important to have, it's important to remember those figures and never forget them, but is it really important to make sure everyone who comes into esports really knows the history? Is it really important that we keep a whole background of history? I'm not saying it's not, I'm just saying, why do you think that's important?
Okay, so just why is it important to, archive the history of competitive gaming? Let's give an example. Does anybody know when basketball was created? What year? No. Okay, I'll just put it out there for you guys. Basketball was created in 1891. There's an award in basketball. It's called I think it's the James Naismith Award. But when basketball was created, it was not a sport. I don't think a lot of people know that. It was a game. It wasn't until 1946 when Adam Silver, who just gave LeBron James his MVP award last night, we created an infrastructure to turn the game of basketball into an actual sport. And the National Basketball Association has an archive of its entire history of the game. Because what happens here, if you don't educate the masses into the craft, the activity, the sport, whatever you want to call it, that they're in, there's no way for the sport to grow. it'll cap at a certain level, and that's pretty much where it is. I don't know if anyone knows it's a sport called racquetball. Does anyone remember that sport? Okay, racquetball's dead now. It never made it because there was no history behind racquetball. Elvis tried to do a thing. ESPN just did a piece on racquetball's history with Elvis in it, and but it didn't survive because there was no history. It's not important for everyone who comes into esports to know about the history, but I believe it is very important for for esports moving forward that history is available to anyone who would like to know about it. If that answers your question directly, because I believe that helps bring in a whole new generation who will be more interested in the prestige of its history.
Last question.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Alex. Sticking with this history topic, the example about professional sports and like the NBA, NFL, they all have a history and everybody knows what it is, but like every basketball fan doesn't need to know the history of the NFL or every other sport. So is it too big to say that people should know the history of all esports? Would it be more practical to maybe keep fighting games and the history of fighting games is one thing, MOBAs and the history of MOBAs as another thing, FPS and the history of that, and kind of try to diversify it in the same way that traditional sports is diversified? Or do you feel like the total education is really that necessary? Because I think to some it might seem daunting, but I think to real traditional sports fans knowing the history, it really enriches their appreciation of the game. And you know, when you're a fan of the sport, you want to know the history of it. And I think that that's definitely true for esports as well. I just don't know how much it breaks out of the sport, the actual esport that you're playing.
Well, diversity is a very good thing. It's very important. To answer that question, it would really be based on the actual person. Some people will get into esports because esports is so broad. It's broken down into genres, and then on top of that, the games create subgenres of it. So if you're talking about FPS, someone may only be interested in Unreal. So they don't care about Call of Duty, they don't care about Counter-Strike, they're not interested, they're only interested in that particular thing. But when I'm looking at esports and I'm talking about its actual history, I'm talking about the big movers and shakers that secure the entire infrastructure of it, not particularly the game. When I say ESL has a history, I'm not talking about what ESL has done for a particular game. I'm talking about what ESL as a corporation has done for competitive gaming globally. That's a very important history. Same thing for MLG, same thing for Twin Galaxies, same thing for Evolution. Evolution covers all fighting games. It is up to the fan or the person who would be interested in that particular part of esports to delve into the different games and the different genres. You don't want to force feed anyone anything. So that's to answer Saad's question over there as well, that it isn't that important we don't want to force feed anyone, but we would like to set up a platform that provides that information for those who are interested in its history to get in depth. And let me close with this. In the 90s, for those who are 90s basketball fan, I'm a huge basketball fan, as you can clearly tell. A lot of us used to talk about basketball, and when we were getting into basketball, what made us enjoy basketball to where it is now, which we're going to repeat this cycle because it was done to us. When we used to talk about Michael Jordan and how great he was, older basketball fans was like, you don't know nothing about basketball. You don't know about Joe Dumars and Isaiah Thomas and Dr. J and Bill Russell and because we didn't. We just came in. We only know about Michael Jordan. And when we used to try to speak on basketball, we would get the New York word summed because we're speaking out of term. We don't know, look what Jordan's done in this, that, and look what this guy's doing this, that, and then they're like, yeah, well, Bill Russell did that like 4 times over, and we look stupid. So then now as a fan, we're like, okay, we don't want to look embarrassed when we go to school, when Jordan wins his 3rd championship and we're talking to another sports fan. So we're going to do our history. We're going to look stuff up, and we want to make sure we get our information straight, and we go in, and that little culture starts right there. That's when you start talking about all the different athletes and what their achievements is, and you start talking about the nade shots and the strong sides and the wall sheets and the fatalities and the Daigos and all those different people, and it enriches the culture of competitive gaming overall. You don't have to cover everything. Believe me, I don't, because there's certain esports I'm just not interested in. I'm interested in certain things, but I grasp the entire history. You know, the Walter Days, the Todd Rogers, the Ben Golds, the Bill Mitchells, and all the organizations that have helped supported esports from that Stone Age time to where we are in the Golden Age. And there's going to be another time after this, like the Diamond Age, where like esports is like virtual. It's virtual reality. It's now on par with sports. Like the way we conventionally play video games, we're going to stop that. We're talking about Tron now, you know, disc ball or whatever you want to call that. That's when esports, you're going to have an entire generation of people being raised to play esports physically. So it's going to be like virtual esports. And that's when we'll get to there. Hopefully ESL will be around to help pioneer that for us. So I'm actually voting for you guys. You guys are the best. And just to let you guys know, ESL is the largest esports organization in the world. They've been around for a decade, right? Plus?
A bit more.
A bit more. So those guys really helped transition what I have a timeline on esports called the Bronze Age. They actually transitioned it into the Golden Age. And now they're about to do another transition into the next age. But thank you for your question, and thank you everybody for coming out.
Yeah, thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Triforce. All right. Thank you so much, man.